Good afternoon and welcome to session 15 on ETC 779. In this class, we are going to learn about the evaluation methodology of public projects. So, what we are going to see in this particular lecture is how to evaluate, how to analyze different public projects. In the preceding lectures, what we have discussed is the evaluation process of private projects. Now, here we are distinguishing between private project and public projects. In our discussion, we will consider public projects as those projects which are being funded by government or some government agency. Whereas, in the previous lectures, we were concentrating mainly on private projects, those financed by either the individual or a private company or a private limited firm or a limited company. So, this particular lecture will focus exclusively on public projects. What happens when you have got to construct a dam or a school building or some defense projects or some similar kind of healthcare projects, let us say, where government is funding. So, in such cases you will find that the methodology that we discussed in our previous discussions do not hold good, because you will find that the fundamental difference in the two approaches is, while one is concentrating more on profit, in public projects the main objective is public welfare. So, these are two fundamental differences. Public projects is mainly for development purpose or for the welfare of public, whereas in private projects you will find that profit maximization is the main objective. How to maximize the profit within a given constraint, that is the main function of any of undertaking any private projects. So, this is how public projects are fundamentally different than private projects. So, naturally whatever method we have learnt till now will not be applicable in case of evaluation of public projects. When I call evaluation, means given a large number of options, how to analyze them, how to rank them, and finally which method to select. That would be our main objective, and this exercise we will be carrying out only for public projects. Remember, whatever discussion we are going to hold now will be relevant only for public projects. You must be seeing in your country that government is taking so many projects. So, that they are called public projects. That means the funding or the finance comes from government. Now, it is different matter that government collects money from public itself in the form of taxes, duties and many other things, but it is their responsibility to utilize the collected money in some constructive manner, so that the development process takes place and the welfare of public is undertaken, right. But you will also realize that no matter how rich your government is, you will find that they also face fund constraint. They will not have infinite sum of money available to them. So, naturally every project has to compete with projects of different areas. For example, healthcare projects will be competing with defense projects would be competing with educational projects would be competing with infrastructure projects. When I say competition, means the fund is limited and I have to do so many projects. Now, since the fund is limited, I cannot undertake all the projects simultaneously. So, I must have certain process or certain methodology available to me, which will say, okay, take this project, don't take this project right now, or maybe this is the most important project, you take up this. So, how do we do ranking? How do we allocate fund as far as public projects is concerned will be the focus of today's class. I will tell you one important method which is called benefit cost ratio method. We will be discussing what benefit cost ratio is, how do we evaluate or how do we calculate benefit cost ratio, what are the problems associated with benefit cost ratio methods, what are the limitations that we have in this for this particular method. So, these things we are going to discuss, and of course, we will reinforce our concepts of benefit cost ratio by solving one illustrative example. So, this is my objective for today's lecture, discussing about how to evaluate different public projects, how to choose one project out of a number of projects, and then finally, we will solve one live example through which the concepts would be more clear. So, we will go to the topic directly, and if you see this particular slide, this is what we discussed just now. In all the preceding discussions, that means prior to today's class, we focused our attention on private projects. That means those private projects for which funding is through either some individual or some private limited company or maybe some public limited company, rather limited company. So, these cases we discussed. Now, there the objective was to maximize the profits while adhering to the contractual requirements. Now, what are the contractual requirements? Completing within the time frame which is given for the project, completing within the budget that is stipulated for the project, completing within the given quality specifications, completing with the client satisfaction. So, these are all contractual requirements for the project. Now, within such framework, my objective is to maximize the profit. So, my objective function there is maximization, and constraints could be time constraint, cost constraint, quality constraint, safety constraints. So, these are my constraints, and my objective is to maximize the profit. But when you consider the public projects, if you see this particular slide, when you consider the public projects, the objective is to provide goods or services to the public at the minimum cost. Why minimum cost? Because funds are not infinite, finances are limited, and I have to take as many projects as possible. So, I must see that within a given minimum cost, how do I provide maximum welfare or maximum services to the public. Now, what should be the criteria for selection of such public projects? You will try, since the fund is of limited number, size, or there is a scarcity of fund, we would at least like that the benefit which the project is going to give should be more than at least the cost. Suppose I am constructing a dam. Now, I can construct a dam of 60 meter height, 70 meter height, 80, 100, 120. There could be large number of options available to me. Now, suppose for constructing 60 meter dam, I may be spending some money, and then corresponding to this dam I must be getting certain benefit. Similar benefit and cost I will calculate for different heights of dam, and my decision criteria would be to see that my benefit at least exceeds the cost. Then only I will consider. If the benefit is less than the cost, normally we don't take up such projects. However, sometimes you will find that due to many other regions, which are of course non-engineering regions, sometimes projects are taken to satisfy some section of society, even though you will find that benefit is not more than the cost. We are not discussing those issues, we are not discussing those aspects. You will find even in your country there could be many projects which might have raised the eyebrows of general public, saying that it is just done to satisfy a particular group. Maybe that group may be having very strong political power. So such type of projects do happen in real life situation. However, we will not be taking those cases in our consideration. We will be dealing mainly with issues which has to do something with either technical issues, engineering issues or financial issues, right. So that's what it is written here, that if you see the slide, the benefit accrued from such projects should at least recover the cost of the projects. Now, in all our discussion which we are going to have or we are going through right now, we have considered public projects means those projects which are funded by government. It could be a state funding, it could be central funding. In many places you will find the government is at two levels. One, maybe the country is divided into number of small states, and then you have a central government agency. So we are considering all those projects as public projects which has something to do with either the state funding or the government funding. Now, some examples of public projects you can see, I have given it here: dams, defense projects, highways. Sometimes you will find that some kind of highways in some stretch they are taken up as a private project also, but here we are concentrating those highway projects for which funding comes through central or through state, right. Then you have educational projects, healthcare projects. So these projects, for our discussion purpose, we are treating them as public projects. Now, the objective for undertaking such projects by government is to provide public welfare.